We're gonna get into the show. I want to lead off. This was a post that was put up here by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on X. This is Senator Cory Booker questioning Jeremy Carl during the hearing. Take a look at this back and forth. This was the copy that was put on this tweet. Senator Booker said, "Do you think there's an active effort to, quote, replace Americans right now?" Trump appointee Jeremy Carl, "I think that the Democrat Party, through its immigration policy, shows signs of that." This is absolutely true. Take a look at this clip.
What do you mean when you say that you believe in the great replacement theory?
Senator, thank you for that question. This refers to the intentional demographic replacement of Europeans in Europe. It was invented by Renaud Camus, who was a French scholar.
You think there's an active effort to, quote unquote, replace Americans right now?
Senator, I think the Democratic Party, through its immigration policies, has certainly shown signs of that.
And I don't understand that. So you are saying that if more Americans are black or Latino Americans, that somehow weakens America because it puts whites in a minority.
So it's just straw manning, ridiculousness, just putting words in his mouth. Absolute absurdity. I think Ben Shapiro actually was the one that said Cory Booker kind of looks like Mr. Potato Head. I think that's pretty accurate. He really does. He put his angry eyebrows on for the hearing yesterday. It's really performative. Cory Booker really is like the archetypical theater kid where he really doesn't believe anything. He's just looking for sound bites. He's just looking to signal that he's on the in and that he's this no-nonsense, defender of whatever, of the post-war consensus, I think is really what he ends up defending. Cory Booker is like mystified, like this isn't happening. This is some weird nutcase conspiracy theory that there's a lot of immigrants coming to the United States and that they are replacing Americans. This is just objectively true. You can just look at census data. This is not like a secret. Jeremy Carl's not uncovering something here. He's just, again, sort of repeating back to these people the policies that they're supporting and what the actual implication is of those policies, which is the United States, Native Americans, Americans that have been here for a while, their birth rate is negative. So they're declining. The population is declining. Us as Native Americans, our population is declining. So when you bring immigrants in, the result is they get replaced. This is not like some nefarious conspiracy theory. This is just the reality of what's happening on the ground. And that's what Jeremy Carl is saying, that the Democrat Party, through its immigration policy, is replacing Americans. That's exactly what's happening. This is happening in Europe. This is happening in Australia, New Zealand. It's beginning to happen in Japan, although it looks like their new government's going to put a lid on it. This is not like this is not some weird esoteric forum like where people are like, this is just happening. This is just the reality on the ground of what's happening. Americans are being replaced. If you watch the clip, Jeremy Carl's not even making an indictment. He's not even stating an opinion on whether this is good or bad. I mean, it's obviously bad, but he's literally just saying this is what's happening on the ground. And Cory Booker's pretending like he's never heard this before in his entire life. Even though Joe Biden, infamously like 15 years ago, Joe Biden was like, white Americans are going to become a minority of the country, a minority in the country. They're going to fall below 50% of the country in like 30, 40 years. And this is an amazing thing. America will become a majority country. So they will celebrate the fact that Americans are being replaced. But then as soon as you point that out, like, hey, isn't that weird that you guys are celebrating that? Isn't that a little weird that your policies are resulting in this? And can we have a conversation about this? No, you're a white supremacist. You're a white nationalist. You're a terrible person. Nah, how could you even like conceptualize that replacement migration's even occurring? It's not happening. So just unbelievable. Chuck Schumer, as they call him, as my dad calls him. He comes out with this statement. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Here's what he had to say. Trump's newest nominee, Jeremy Carl, has a long history of racist, white supremacist, and anti-Semitic views, which plainly disqualifies him from serving in a senior post at the State Department. Jeremy Carl's nomination should go no further, and he should be forced to answer during testimony for his long history of violent, racist, and anti-Semitic rhetoric. Well, for one, on the anti-Semitic part, that's already ridiculous. Jeremy Carl is ethnically Jewish. He was raised in a Jewish family. They converted to Christianity, so he is a Christian. But the idea that he has anti-Semitic views doesn't even make any sense on the face, considering like his like what he is. Like, that's just absolutely ridiculous. As far as racist, white supremacist views, again, Jeremy Carl's entire work has just been accurately pointing out that there has been these DEI policies, these affirmative action policies that have negatively impacted white people. It's not a surprise. It's not a shocker. We saw the piece in Compact Magazine, posted by written by Jacob Savage, that came out about 2 months ago, that literally just went through the data and laid out, yes, these DEI policies, these affirmative action policies are negatively impacting white Americans. It's impacting their performance, impacting their ability to get jobs, impacting their general perception in the workplace and in these different industries. The Jacob Savage piece specifically highlighted academia and Hollywood, where white people, it's quite frankly, openly discriminated against, and they will tell you that to your face. This is not like, again, this is not hidden esoteric like 4chan, discussion happening. This is just us looking at data, looking at what they say, and repeating it back to them and saying, you believe this? Or is this what you're doing? Because, I mean, we do have a sort of issue with this. And then they just respond by saying, oh, that's racist, white supremacist. Utterly ridiculous. I will say, for the record, Jeremy Carl is a fantastic guy. I've met him. I've had conversations with him. Unbelievable man. I have nothing but great things to say about him. He's one of the kindest people I've ever met. He's a very sweet heart. He's a very good man. And that's the exact type of person you want working in the government. As soon as I saw that he was appointed to a position in the Trump administration, it was like oxygen. I'm like, yes, I voted for Trump for a lot of reasons, but one of the primary reasons I voted for Trump, why I've supported Trump for 3 election cycles now, is because I want people like Jeremy Carl in the government, because he's a fantastic person. Policy aside, he's fantastic on policy. He's a genius. But just as a man, he's a great man. That's exactly who you want staffing an administration, because, I mean, the swamp creatures, there's just some really nasty people that have been floating around D.C. for decades, for centuries, quite frankly. Jeremy Carl is just a breath of fresh air, and a fantastic man, a gentleman, and a scholar. So when you just see stuff like this, anybody that's out there in the audience is familiar with Jeremy Carl in any way, sees Chuck Schumer's words here and just immediately knows that that's just slander, quite frankly. It's just not true whatsoever. He's an unbelievable guy. Chris Murphy comes in here. This is Chris Murphy, who a lot of people on the right glaze. They glaze Chris Murphy. They're like, he's the sensible moderate who will reach across the aisle. He'll have conversations with us. But at his core, he's a leftist. He's a leftist, yes, but he's a leftist activist at his core, because when it comes to actual policy, when it comes to actual authentically right-wing policy, he gets the knives out and he slanders you. This is what he had to say. Trump nominated a legit white nationalist to a top post at the State Department. I asked him some basic questions about his belief in the, quote, erasure of white culture. Watch this embarrassing, fumbling answer, like he has never been before asked to explain his views. I'll play a little bit of this clip here. See if this comes off as an embarrassing, fumbling answer, or see if this comes off as someone that's an intellectual that isn't like completely, like a TV talking head. I think it's actually quite refreshing that he's not like Johnny on the spot with, CNN anchor level, responses here. This is just ridiculous. This slander here from Chris Murphy. Take a look.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more distinct.
You're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those
music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
Yes.
I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized, and I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for
Well,
it.
I'm way over my time. I think you're struggling to answer this question, right? Because underlying your beliefs is a sentiment that white culture is just simply better. Tell me,
He's never once said that. I think there's a case to be made for that, certainly, but that's my opinion, not necessarily Jeremy Carl's. Utterly just nasty from Chris Murphy, just nasty, where he's, again, just trying to put words in his mouth. He's trying to portray Jeremy Carl as someone that he is not. Jeremy Carl is an academic. He's a gentleman. He's a scholar. He is just correctly identifying that, yes, white Americans have, since the founding, made up the majority of the country. That's just the reality. He's not making an indictment if that's good or bad. He's just saying that, again, as if any other country on planet Earth would be slightly disturbed if their culture was being changed irreparably forever. I can't pronounce the word quite properly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a valid concern I think that Americans can have, is if their culture is changing. Again, it happens to be the majority of the country is white, yes, and it still is, and it always has been. So the culture of the United States is going to reflect that. It's going to reflect the folkways specifically of Britain, as Jeremy Carl pointed out, because again, the founding stock of the United States was primarily from the British Isles. And then Chris Murphy's trying to portray this as if he's like trying to create some like white ethno state or something. It's absolutely ridiculous. Jeremy Carl's just saying, yes, there's a culture in the United States that exists, that has existed for a very long time, and it is being changed, and it is becoming more difficult to access elements of that culture. A specific example he pointed out was the Super Bowl halftime show. It was not even in English, so we're not even debating on whether access to that sort of traditional American culture, that British sort of derived culture. We're not even talking about that anymore. We're just like asking for the Super Bowl halftime show to be in English. We're asking for very basic things here. Again, this characterization that it's an embarrassing, fumbling answer is absolutely ridiculous. I think he was actually quite clear, quite concise, as he's saying, yes, there's some touch points of food, music, the way that our churches are, that are sort of distinctly American, that belong to the majority of the population, the majority culture of the United States, are being erased. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think everyone understands this. Joe Biden understands this when Joe Biden came out and said, yes, it's a great thing that white Americans are going to become a minority of the country, because he's correctly identifying that, yeah, white Americans have a culture. We have a way that we conduct ourselves. We have a way that we behave. Is it good or bad? We're not. That's not the debate that's being had. We're just saying, has this culture made up the majority of the country? Is this the culture of the United States? Yes. And then is that up for debate? Should we change that culture? That's the question. Is the culture being changed? Yes. Should we change that culture? That's the debate that we're having. Should we introduce more and more people that will change the culture? Can we object to that? Are we allowed to object to that? Because everyone else is allowed to object to that. Everyone else in the entire world is allowed to object to massive changes occurring to their culture. That's just very common sense stuff that he's proposing here. And any opposition to, again, your culture changing gets you lambasted as a white nationalist, according to Chris Murphy. I think if someone in Bangladesh, if they were like, hey, there's a lot of people coming in from, let's just say hypothetically, China, and they're changing Bengali culture, and they're changing the way that Bangladesh is, the way that they conduct their affairs, the way their food is, their music is, their places of worship are, and they objected to that. No one would call them Bengali nationalists. No one, or like extremists. No one would say that. They would say, yeah, I think Bengalis have the right to, again, be concerned if their culture is changing. It's just utterly just nasty stuff from Chris Murphy. So, of course, the Republicans, these weak senators, fall for this right away. They still haven't wised up that no matter what you say, no matter how normal your opinion is, leftists will call you every name in the book. John Curtis flaked. He's a senator from Utah. He's saying, I'm opposing Jeremy Carl, his nominee. After reviewing his record and participating in today's hearing, I am not convinced that Jeremy Carl is the right person to represent our nation's best interests in international forums, and I find his anti-Israel views and his insensitive remarks about Jews unbecoming of the position for which he has been nominated. Okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Again, Jeremy Carl, his takes on Israel were, again, very milquetoast. He was not really lambasting Israel. I don't think he even made an assessment on Israel. He was just saying a policy that I think everybody supports, which is we should treat Israel like any other country in our relationship with them as we would with Britain or France or Canada or Australia. That's what he said, and this is like now the litmus test, I guess, for political candidates on the right is their view on Israel. Just utterly ridiculous. That wasn't even the focus. So like John Curtis is just picking out a completely different separate thing. He just needed an excuse to oppose Jeremy Carl's opposition because he's scared of the left. That's quite frankly what it came down to, is he needed a reason to oppose him that he could justify in his head. Utterly ridiculous. Especially, like I said, Jeremy Carl is of Jewish descent. Like, he's the furthest thing from an anti-Semite. Like, it's just, I feel like I'm a crazy person right now. I feel like I'm going crazy. Am I insane? That, like, what are we doing here? What is going on? This is just insane. So, thank heavens, everyone from across the right is going to bat for Jeremy Carl. Nick Solheim, he's the CEO of American Moment, a really impactful organization in D.C. They provide a lot of staffing for the Trump administration, other Republican institutions in D.C. He says Jeremy Carl is a patriot who's 100% aligned with the president's agenda that prioritizes peace not just in the Middle East but around the world. That he should experience some difficulty in confirmation is the sign of fecklessness of some Republicans of the Senate. Absolutely correct. Chris Rufo commenting on that initial clip. With Senator Booker. This is the same manipulation as the debate on critical race theory. Leftists will explicitly tell you that they want to, quote, abolish whiteness and then pretend to be shocked when you say that they want to abolish whiteness. Jeremy Carl did nothing wrong. Absolutely true. Again, Jeremy Carl is just repeating their words back to them. He wasn't even making any assessments or indictments. He was just repeating what their policy is. Ben Braddock, again, if you are seeing this and you resonate with anything Jeremy Carl is saying, especially if you're in Utah, you need to give John Curtis's office a call. Again, Ben Braddock here says, politely ask that he support Jeremy Carl's nomination. There's no need to get nasty here. Again, if you're in Utah especially, you need to be telling John Curtis, hey, I voted for you to vote for people like Jeremy Carl. Utterly ridiculous. So yeah, if you're in Utah especially, be putting pressure on John Curtis to change his vote because it's absolutely ridiculous. Lomez here, great guy. He put up this statement. Today, Jeremy Carl, one of the right's absolute best people, correct, who grew up in a Jewish family, by the way, got treated to hysterical accusations by a Democrat-led Senate panel over his supposed anti-Semitism, anti-feminism, and racism. GOP senators might get cold feet and refuse to push a State Department nomination forward. Please apply as much pressure on them as you can. They can absolutely not buckle on this. We need guys like Jeremy and the admin. The Dems have to learn this lesson that these wild, nonsensical accusations won't work anymore. Do not give in this moral blackmail. Absolutely correct. Utterly ridiculous that we're still allowing the Dems to use the same playbook where they lambast anyone to the right of John McCain as a white supremacist. That is their playbook, and for some reason people still haven't wised up to this. Unbelievable, absolutely ridiculous. Well, what we're getting at, again, I brought this up on the show yesterday. There's this team of analysts, the White Papers Policy Institute. They've been doing some great work. Again, this is my takes on this whole situation. I read this yesterday about remittances, about how 37% of Nicaragua's GDP is remittances from the U.S., 6.2 billion, a quarter of El Salvador's is remittances from America, 27% of Honduras is remittances. So again, these people are not only changing the layout of our country, the cultural landscape of our country, but they're also extracting quite a bit of money from the country. This is a shocking statistic. 12% of Haitians globally, so 12% of Haitians, 1.7 million people, now live in the United States. Between 450,000 and 550,000 entered under the Biden admin's open border policies. 15 to 25% of Haitian economy are remittances from the U.S. At least 53% of Haitians rely on welfare. Again, you can't bring 1.7 million people into the country from a completely different culture, which is Haiti, and not expect that to change the culture of the United States. I mean, we saw in Springfield the impact that they've had just on one town. Like, again, they bring these people in and then they gaslight you for pointing out that they're bringing these people in. They say, well, these are just random people. It's like people are interchangeable. Why do you even care? For one, because half of them are on welfare. I think that's a natural objection to have. We could object to all of this immigration just on economic terms alone. We don't even need to get into the culture element if we didn't want to. Just on economics alone, these people should not be coming to the country. They're dependent on us. They're dependent on taxpayers. Over half of them rely on welfare. What is the argument for bringing these people in? There is none. The whole argument for mass migration was predicated on these people bailing us out because we were suffocating from whiteness. We were suffocating from economic inactivity. We were suffocating from all these different things. And these Haitians have boldly come to save us, to bail us out. Well, for one, just on economics alone, they are not. They are draining us. Again, over half of them are reliant on welfare. And then they are changing our culture. They're changing places like Springfield. Here's another data point. 10% of the Somali diaspora live in the United States, 180,000 people. Another 10% in Britain, 12% in Europe. Remittances to Somalia were $1.7 billion. 40% of families in Somalia are receiving money from remittances. 40% of families in Somalia are receiving money from the West. Our money from the economy extracted and sent to another country. We are being robbed blind. Western taxpayers are funding 17 to 20% of Somalia's GDP. This is just ridiculous. They're lying to us. They're lying to us and robbing us of our wealth. And we're just as expected to tolerate this. We're expected to, anytime we object to this, they call us white supremacists. They call us, this is very sensible policy. We're just reading data and we're saying, can we solve this issue? This is bad. This is not predicated on hatred. I don't hate Somalis. I don't hate any of these people. I don't hate Haitians. I don't think about them very much. Quite frankly, I don't think about them very much. But now we have to because they're coming here and they're extracting wealth from us and they're changing our culture. And like I said, if I object, suddenly I'm this evil, horrible person. This is a shocking number right here. Again, from the White Papers Policy Institute, there are now more Indians, 3 million, than native Welshmen in Britain, about 2 million. There were 1.9 million Indians at the 2021 UK census. At least 993,000 more arrived between 2021 and 2025. Indians are the third largest ethnic group in Britain, behind only the Scots and English. This is now beyond economics. This is where they change these countries fundamentally. These people are brought in to change these countries fundamentally. The Welsh in their native homeland of Wales, in Britain. Wales is in Britain. It makes up one of the three countries of Great Britain with Scotland and England. The Welsh are outnumbered on their own island by Indians. I don't know if you guys are geography nerds. India's nowhere near Britain. These people were brought here to replace the Welsh. That's what's going on. They are replacing you. This is replacement migration. Again, this is not a nefarious conspiracy theory. This is data. This is numbers. There are more Indians than the Welsh in Britain. Hello? Are we not allowed to say it would be nice if the Welsh still existed? Is that wrong? Is my official, when I see this data, am I supposed to celebrate this? Am I supposed to say, fantastic, the Welsh are now going to be wiped off the face of the planet? Because that's the reality. That's the reality of what's going on here. They were replacing you. That's what is going on. And then as soon as you say that, hey, I think what happens when you bring in a lot of Indians and outnumber native Welshmen, I think what that in turn does is replaces you. And then as soon as you point that out, you're an evil person. You're a white supremacist, racist, et cetera, et cetera. We're tired of being gaslit, quite frankly. We're sick of it. We're absolutely sick of it. It would be nice if the Welsh were, it would be nice if my children would see Wales and it was full of Welsh people. That would be quite nice, actually. For the same reason, it'd be nice if India was full of Indians or Nigeria was full of Nigerians. Global diversity is actually a nice thing. We recognize this with animals. Like when a Siberian tiger goes extinct, everyone recognizes that's a sad thing because that was a distinct thing and now it's gone. And it's the same thing with the Welsh. It would be tragic if the Welsh cease to exist because it's a beautiful thing. Diversity at the global scale is actually quite a beautiful thing. Instead, these people want to rebuild the Tower of Babel and turn us into like a global favela where people are indistinguishable from each other. There's no distinguishable factors and just turn us into like this global slum. That's what they're trying to do. That's what's occurring here. That's the result of this policy. And again, if you point it out, then you're a racist, white nationalist, etc. Utterly ridiculous.